This may or may not be of interest to New Jersey gun owners, but I'm going to give you some history on where the Arthur Sill law came from, the New Jersey firearms ID card, and what was going on during the minutes of the meeting when they were having hearings about the law, and how they actually really screwed up when they were making their arguments. They already lost the argument right from the get-go by the way they were formulating their defense. Now, we have Phil Murphy, Sheila Oliver. They have your back. More like they have your back with a knife stuck in it. It's going to be pretty bad. Now, since I'm addressing an audience here that's mainly gun owners, I assume, you probably did not vote for this guy, Phil Murphy, I'd pretty much assume, because, here he is looking at, okay, you know what's amazing about this guy? First off, you would think from his stance he would have been a lifelong politician rather than a Goldman Sachs executive. And it's like he should surely know which drives the economy. It sure isn't the government. It's actually free enterprise and a lack of interference from the government that actually drives the economy, right? People's pursuit of happiness and their greed makes the economy go. It's just human nature. Government puts the brakes on it. So here, he's got a millionaire's tax. He's in favor of that, which I guess maybe it's not going to apply to him because he knows other ways around it. Affordable housing, and of course, how that works. Education eliminates standardized testing. The whole thing, immigration, everything, just open borders. Minimum wage, might as well raise it to $50 an hour. And of course, he's going to tighten gun laws. So, anyway, oh God, you can't grow the economy, aggressively if property taxes start to melt away. Yeah, boy, I don't think he actually worked for Goldman Sachs in some ways. I don't understand how this guy could have worked for Goldman Sachs and think like this. But anyway, here he is with President Obama. So, but you know what the deal is going to happen here. So, anyway, I just want to point out, previously I did put out a video, New Jersey gun laws, examined detail 50 years ago. It was kind of a long video, 31 minutes. And I also went into a lot about the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership in their detailed research that, shows like exactly how these concepts were introduced into New Jersey law. But before I go on to that, I also want to say that students in schools, this is actually another video I did, a snapshot of a video I did, preparing for the advanced placement exam for students, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights. They're telling the students the Second Amendment, they took the liberty to actually twist it completely around. The people have the right to keep and bear arms in a state militia. That was being taught to students for the advanced placement exam, which is not correct. That's not the Second Amendment at all, and it actually does apply to there wouldn't be a Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights if it just applied to the government. It was the people's right. I mean, right there, just the fact that the anti-federalists were trying to secure and guarantee liberties for people against the state, obviously that alone should tell you why the Second Amendment was put there. It's for the people. But that's not the Second Amendment, what they quoted there. They just made up something else. And this was from the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. These are two books I actually got back in the 1990s. Gateway to Tyranny, the Nazi weapons law of March 18, 1938, that was put into place by Adolf Hitler, which registered firearms. I know some people argue that it lessened gun restriction, but our laws in the United States from 1968 Gun Control Act and also the 1966 Arthur Sill law, which Arthur Sill was the New Jersey State District Attorney for which the law was named. He was an attorney that never fought in our armed services. He never fought against the Nazis, but he deemed it upon himself to restrict, greatly curtail New Jersey gun owners' rights. Okay, now it's very likely, from Rabbi Aaron Zelman's research, who was the original founder for the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, which I'm a member of, and I'd rather be I'm more of a I'm far more a proud membership of them and Gun Owners of America than the NRA. NRA is like, you know, they're, I don't know what they do, just grab money. And the deal is that the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership did a lot of strong research, and they showed that the 1968 Gun Control Act and also the New Jersey Arthur Sill Law of 1966 was based almost verbatim upon the Nazi weapons law of March 18, 1938. The sporting purposes clause was actually introduced into U.S. law. You see, the Second Amendment is nothing about sporting purposes. It's actually mainly there as a check against the government. And, you know, I don't know if YouTube was going to like me saying this or not, but it's quite obvious that a lot of these events right now are being, you know, if you look at what happened with Paddock in Vegas, if you believe this guy could be three Rambos at once, you're freaking really, I don't know, I guess you have absolutely no concept of what really goes on. You know, there was multiple shooters, which, you know, it's being covered up. Lethal Laws, Gun Control, that's another one they wrote, book, which I have. This is a video I did on it before. Lethal Laws, Gun Control is the key to genocide. There's never been a genocide in the history of, you know, all our recorded history, where there was no gun control first, where people were not allowed to have weapons. You know, I guess it could have been swords way back when the technology was only swords and guns weren't invented. But there can never be a genocide by a government, which it only take, you know, it might not happen right away. It might take 50 years. It might take 75 years or whatever. I don't know. Maybe take 10 years. But there's never a draconian policy whereby people are hoarded up and taken away and all this kind of garbage until they first have their means to protect themselves taken away. So that has to happen first. You never have a genocide where there's no gun control. You have to have gun control first before there's a genocide. And genocides actually have accounted for more deaths than criminals, by far. And I also want to mention here, I'm Roman Catholic by birth, okay, but I lean very much towards Judaism, and you know, I get very much aggravated sometimes. I mean, I don't really disagree with Jesus' teachings, but, and maybe I don't know if he's a savior or not, but I can tell you one thing, I get very much aggravated with the cop-out position that people take, where they say, Jesus loves me, he's going to be our savior, don't worry about anything because Jesus will take care of it. That is largely a big reason why things are screwed up. And sometimes I think that, you know, the whole religious phenomenon was created to keep people in line, to give them some kind of hope when there's no hope. So, you know, oh, as long as I got faith in Jesus and everything's fine, it don't matter. The earthly things don't matter, you know what I mean? So they don't do anything. It's sort of like, you know, if they didn't think that way, they probably would say, hey, I ain't putting up with this. Now, another angle I'm coming up with, and I think I'm half Italian, right? But I also have Confederate heritage from my father's side, grandfather's side specifically more, I guess. My father got it from my grandfather, but I guess my grandfather was born in South Carolina, and I go all the way back. That goes all the way back to the 1600s, the American Revolution, the war between the states, South Carolina fighting against the criminal Yankee Empire, and I'm trying to push something up in New Jersey where I got some of these pins ordered from Europe, the Italian flag and the Confederate rebel flag, if you want to call it that, and there's a few Italians up there that really got some balls. I think most of them don't, but more of them I'd say are not liberals. I could say that right now, or socialists. You know, they kind of don't like the damn crazy rules up there. But there's a lot of Italians up in New Jersey. And I think they could be you know, there should be an alliance between the Italians up in New Jersey and the Confederates down south. Maybe we get something going here, right? How's that? So anyway, this is the public hearing back on March 2nd, 1966, New Jersey legislation. Now this is from the Arthur Sill. Arthur Sill was the New Jersey state attorney that was pushing his legislation through. Now, this legislation, like I said, was based upon the Nazi weapons law of March 1938. How did Arthur Sill get a copy of this or know about it? It was actually Senator Thomas Dodd Sr. of Connecticut who had a copy of the law translated from German into English. Actually, if you look at the Gun Control Act of 1968 that came about 2 years after this New Jersey law of 1966, New Jersey was pushing the envelope first here, right? And what happened was, it was a matter of Arthur Sill had a copy of it from Thomas Dodd. He was very good friends with. Now, in 1966, you had John F. Kennedy was already assassinated. Now, if you look at the minutes of this meeting, it says, in fact, in other words, how many more people will be killed in their homes, their cars? This is what they're arguing. How many more people will be killed in their homes, their cars, or a crowded place by a sniper's bullet from a high-powered rifle? How many more children will kill themselves with a shotgun and give it to them as a gift? I don't know. I mean, how many children would freaking jump off a cliff, or climb a tree and freaking land head first? I mean, nobody. In fact, how many more presidents must we lose before we come to our senses? So they were pushing the JFK assassination with Lee Harvey Oswald. And as we know now, with the full release of the JFK files, which Trump released, which I think he did it as an insurance policy for himself, that it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. There was multiple assassins. Government was all behind it, or the deep state, CIA. I don't know if you want to call it the deep state. It's a freaking stupid cliche. CIA was behind it. Actually, JFK, if he didn't break his agreement with the mafia, the Italian mafia, they gave, the Italian mafia gave him $1 million, which is an astronomical amount of money back in 1960, to lay off him, and he didn't. They would have protected him. They would have protected his back. Instead, they said, "The hell with this jerk." JFK went after him full tilt, which is kind of stupid. You can't make too many enemies when you're up there on the top. I figured Trump is not going to try to. I don't know what Trump is 100%. I'm not 100% sure. He could be a scam, but what are you going to do? Really, I don't know. The governor, in his 4th annual message to the legislature, wants to preserve the right of sportsmen and other law-abiding citizens to own firearms for legitimate purposes. So the governor wants to allow you, the citizen, to own your gun. Isn't he a wonderful guy? Well, you know what? That's the whole thing. We're not supposed to be subject to their freaking will. They're supposed to be subject to us. But in theory they tell you they're the servant, but in reality they're the master. They are the master. That's the reality of it. Assemblyman Friedland, Mr. Chairman, the reason I ask this question is that I take it to the main thread of your argument, this particular bill, that you believe it puts restricts the sportsmen of our state. Again, they're arguing from sportsmen. Sportsmen. They lost the argument right there. And actually, as I get along, I have to go through this a little bit quicker, but I just have to, so you don't get too bored with it. You can actually freeze frame some of this stuff. I think there's like, I don't know, 80 pages in this damn thing or something. And I was looking at how many times they pulled out this argument about sportsmen. The sportsmen, we thought that we would assist the sportsmen by including the word pistol in there, as well as rifle, to make it positive that they had the right to carry these pistols to and from target practice. You see, target practice. See, they're arguing for target practice hunting. It's our sport. It's not our inherent right to self-defense. And you guys in the government can't be trusted, basically. Again, they're arguing about the shooting sports. They're afraid that eventually it'll lead to the elimination of shooting sports. Now, in New Jersey, the shooting sports are greatly curtailed. There's probably way less firearms ownership in New Jersey than any other state. And I have to also state this as being somebody who grew up in New Jersey, in the northeast New Jersey, not far from New York City. I was on the other side of the Hudson, okay? I wasn't in New York City per se, because I know every time if you're on the other side of the Hudson compared to a New Yorker, you're a hick no matter what. But I was in the city, okay? I could see the Empire State Building right from, just walk up the hill. I could see the Manhattan skyline. It was only 10, 11 miles away. But it's a matter of, up in New Jersey now that they hardly have any shooting going on where it's sportsmen. It's like, I don't know. It's so restricted. It's ridiculous. You have to have just laws like you have to. If you have a gun in your car, it's got to be you're going to a range. You got to show you're going to a range. You got to belong to a club. It's like to get the New Jersey Firearms ID card, which I'm not showing here. I can show you on the other video. If you look up the other video I was talking about, New Jersey gun laws examining detail 50 years ago. You can see what the hell's going on with that. But you got to have, like, the police have to do a background check. They have to approve you. They can deny you. You have to have a mental health check. You have to have references. You have to have document every place you lived. You have to have very solid references too. People you knew more than 10 years. There's a whole bunch of garbage just to get a freaking. And then you have to present this ID card every time you buy ammo in New Jersey. It's actually more restrictive for firearms ownership in New Jersey than it is in Canada. That's how screwed up it is. Then those, of course, who are interested in the pursuit of any sport, again, these are the guys that are arguing against the law. They're saying, the sport, it's our sport, whether it's hunting or fishing or golf or tennis or anything, skiing or whatever. See, they're comparing their gun ownership to golf and tennis and skiing. They're saying we should be able to purchase the equipment necessary to pursue our sport. Okay? You see, that's how they lost. The requirement that will provide the state police with a list of our members annually is retained. So, in other words, the state police have lists of all kinds of people. I'm going to tell you. I put out videos about. I know they rate different states as corruption. Which state's more corrupt? I know every state is actually corrupt in a lot of different ways. Everywhere. The southern states are corrupt. I mean, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, they're all corrupt, But in California is corrupt. North Dakota, South Dakota is corrupt, for crying out loud. Alaska is corrupt. New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, blah, blah, blah. New Jersey and New York take the cake. The thing is, a lot of the corruption in New Jersey and New York is much more hidden. There's far more intelligence up there. That's why you don't really see it as much. And actually put a video out about New Jersey and New York cops, and YouTube did approve it for monetization. I was trying to be very honest on it, and you can take a look at it for whatever it's worth. Maybe I'll put a link down there. As far as the Ridgefield Rifle Club is concerned, we have very few fathers and mothers who are enthusiastic about the shooting sport. It's a controversial sport. These people, they were already screwed up in New Jersey back in 1966. This is actually the generation, you might think of them, are they the baby boomers? No, these weren't the baby boomers. This was actually prior to the baby boomers. You're talking to baby boomers who were born from, say, 1948 or 50 to, I don't know, late 60s or 70, right? The people that were actually at this hearing, they were born in the 1930s. They were the World War II Great Depression era generation. So you're talking, if you were born in 1930, you were 36 years old, or maybe 35, depending on, more likely 35, during this hearing of March 1966. You might have been born in 1910, right? I mean, you would have only been 55 years old at this time, right? Or 1900, 1800 something. And these were not the people of the baby, these were people before the baby boomer generation. Maybe much before that. Maybe the World War I crowd. And these are the kind of people that were making this dumb argument. It's amazing they did this. I can't believe this. But I can also tell you that after this law was passed with the New Jersey ID card, I know they closed these loopholes a long time ago, but when you used to be able to go to gun shows in, say, 1968, 1970, you used to be able to buy guns private sale in New Jersey left and right. And there was a large amount of not just M1 Garands, but M1 carbines left over from World War II and the Korean War. The AR-15 or the M16 style rifle wasn't really, that was like newfangled garbage. And nobody respected that back then. The M1, the M14 or M1 Garand was big respected. So actually after this, see, a lot of people didn't really care that they had this damn firearms ID card law, because you could go to gun shows at the time, no more. But back in the late 60s, after this law was implemented, you could go to gun shows, you could buy all the ammo you wanted, private sale left and right. So this law didn't mean nothing. Then all of a sudden, all the restrictions started coming in. Like little, I mean, I could tell you that I never was aware, I forgot when they passed the law in the 1940s that you can't pump your own gasoline in New Jersey. I remember, like, I always pumped my own gasoline in New Jersey my whole life whenever I lived there. And I was back there for some time in 96 when they had the blizzard. I remember that. And I was always pumping my own gasoline. I never realized it was even a law, for crying out loud. But, you know, it's a matter of sometimes these laws are on the books and then they start, people don't even realize they're there. I think private sale was still okay for a while. That's why a lot of people didn't care about this law that much. But once there's a law like this, you're screwed. Because then they can start tying down more strings, just like tying down Gulliver. So again, speaking of as a member of the Legislation Committee for the Campfire Club of America, a national conservation and sportsmen's organization, blah, blah, blah. You know, in other words, you're talking about sportsmen, which is not what they need to be doing against sporting firearms. You know, sporting firearms. So in other words, you know, then you got new laws about, does the firearm have a sporting purpose? See? That's why New Jersey has all these dumb laws about, because they can't have a bayonet lug on it or something, or whatever. Who the hell even puts a bayonet on a freaking rifle anyway? But, you know, they can restrict firearms by, you know, ammo capacity and all this garbage. Like they do it by 1,000 different strings, like tying down Gulliver, and that's exactly how they've been doing it. So again, we say that the committee, this assembly, couldn't care less about the sportsmen or the right of New Jersey citizens. You see, sportsmen. What you really got to be arguing is that the government, that Arthur Sill, the Attorney General, the governor at that time in 1966, could care less about the rights of the American citizens to defend themselves against a potential tyranny, for one, which obviously they are a tyranny because they were pushing this through. Now, remember, this was 1966. What happened later, in 1968, you had Bobby Kennedy died, and then, assassinated, and you had Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and you see, they were pushing this law through in 1966. Sorry, I'm going too long because I got to bring up this stuff. You got to remember that this is how the climate was pushed. But at the time, you had JFK. So at the national level, there wasn't enough hysteria to push through a law like this at a national level. Now, the Gun Control Act of 1968 didn't go into, restricting ID cards, fingerprints. Oh yeah, that's New Jersey, fingerprints on your ID card, and all this other garbage, and that you couldn't buy ammo without an ID card. But with only one assassination, it wasn't going to work at the national level. So, Bobby Kennedy, actually, if you look at what Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, that lone gunman theory is more garbage too. It's a lot of stuff going on there. But again, if you look at what's going on currently with, Sandy Hook and, Vegas and Pulse nightclub Orlando and all this garbage, DHS, FBI, CIA, G4S, and all that other garbage. It's like the more you need enough of these things, then you can get it through. Because these politicians they're garbage, man. They don't care about nothing. In other words, they go by, look, I can't look this way. I can't look bad. Everybody knows this, though, but, maybe not everybody, but whatever. And again, we have nothing against sportsmen. We feel that the sportsmen should be, should have nothing against law enforcement. I'll tell you the truth, I got plenty against law enforcement. You know why? Because law enforcement is extremely corrupt. Actually, I call cops this. Cops stand for criminals, communists, obeying politicians. Because most of the laws on our books are freaking created by big money, and the politicians are just the vocal salesmen for those policies. So, in other words, I can tell you there's a lot of laws on the books that weren't around way back when, and everybody actually thrived and survived much better than what's going on today. The laws that we got today are freaking asinine to the max. Then again, this other guy says, I'm an attorney with the offices in Union City and Hudson County. That's up there in the Northeast. I'm also a lifelong shooter and sportsman. For this reason, I feel I am perhaps better qualified than the average layman to express my opinion. You see, sportsmen, what are you talking about? Are you talking about football, lacrosse, golf? What is this? This is not the same thing. And the other side of it was, in 1966, you had a lot of demonstrations. You had a lot of, there were shootings going on and things like that. And, partly because of civil rights, which in the major media was fanning the flames on that garbage, too. As a matter of fact, if you look at during the time of civil rights, that was the centennial for the war between the states. 1961 to 1965, 100 years later after 1861 to 1865. They told all the southern states to celebrate on a state level all their, 100-year anniversary. So like South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, they put the battle flag up on the state capitol on April 1961, 100-year anniversary of Fort Sumter. And what they were doing, what the major media was doing, was portraying that as anti-civil rights. See, in other words, they play this game left and right, man. They got everybody freaking fighting each other. In the meantime, they're grabbing more and more control. The media is not the top of the pyramid, but they're part of it, the major media anyway. So nobody can deny that a certain firearm is equally or as dangerous, if not more so, than an automobile. So why should not a sportsman take reasonable and logical view that not admit that in our modern urban society, his privilege to have and use and acquire a firearm might be subjected to reasonable restrictions and reasonable control, just like cars, right? Except cars aren't what the hell. It's not an inherent right to protect yourself. Your inherent right to life, as Jews for the Preservation of Firearms will point out. Seems like they're the only ones that do this. And they're talking about the harassment of sportsmen, provisions protecting sportsmen, and fellow sportsmen, same old garbage. Again, hunting and target practice affects the sportsman. You get the idea. Sportsman wants to go hunting, blah, blah, blah. You lost. Now, here's another thing. The bill is a menace on many grounds to every citizen, and is not just the business of every sportsman. Somebody's telling the truth here. See? It's a menace to every citizen, because it's your inherent right to self-defense. It is our feeling that your committee should know that every member of the Citizens Committee on Firearms Legislation has been the subject of police investigation. And there is why you need guns, because the cops are nothing but an arm of the politicians. And if you got a good cop, he ain't going to be on a force very long if he rats out the blue. You understand? That is the reality of it. And, I know some people, maybe I sound anti-cop, but in a lot of ways I am, because I don't trust them anymore. I mean, the millennial cops are really bad. Um, but if you look at even like when a cop does something wrong, he might be doing something right 99% of the time. But you could say that even about crooks and jewel thieves and you know Jake the Snake that freaking mugs people in you know in an alleyway, right? Maybe he buys kids an ice cream cone during a time when he ain't mugging people. That's the same thing with everything that I mean, just because somebody talks nice, it doesn't mean they're nice all the time. I mean, people get fooled by the uniform. Oh, they get fooled by that garbage. A lot of them in New Jersey are not good. Um, so you're talking about New Jersey youth must complete a safety course before he get his first resident hunting license. In addition to safety, you might be taught good sportsmanship and I don't know. Now this guy was the only guy that freaking made any sense, and he was a guy that wasn't even a freaking gun owner. This Kopech guy. He says, we are still old enough here to all know and remember a little paper hanger by the name of Adolf Hitler. So you remember this was 1966, a little over 30 years from the time World War II was over, right? 31 years. So you're talking today, would that be like 1989 or something like that? 1989, 90? It's not that long ago, right? So 1937, as you remember, in 1937, the Nazi army marched into Austria, and they took it literally without firing a shot. Again, in 1938, they marched into Sudetenland, which was part of the Czechoslovakia at the time. They took almost every without firing a shot, simply because they knew just about where every gun was. So that's why you had, and also he mentioned again, this is the guy that's not even a gun owner. He's the only guy that freaking made the right argument. He's the only one I saw in this whole almost 100 pages of stuff, which I'm not showing you all, that actually argued the thing right. And he says back in the 17th century, the King of England issued a proclamation regarding the colonists. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All colonists will register arms down at the town hall. And had we done this, the country would have never been born. We wouldn't have had the United States of America. This is the only time people actually been free. Semi-free, because you're losing your freedoms very quickly. It happened, what happened in Europe with the Nazis and the fascists and all that. People are apathetic in the United States and says, well, it can't happen here. Well, they thought it couldn't happen over there. Same deal. They never thought, the communists took over in East Europe. They never thought that would happen. And he goes, this is the same guy. I don't know much about gun laws. I don't have one. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't intend to get a gun. But I fear from what I've heard today that we have adequate gun laws already, and if they are properly enforced, we don't need another one. It's talking about this 1966 Arthur Sill law, which is a fascist freaking Nazi law. I myself feel that this law is just another one too many. This is a guy that's not even a gun owner. He's the only guy that argued this stuff right. Everybody else is like, it's our sport. They're worried about this sport. And you see, a lot of people didn't give a damn, like I told you, because in effect, even after this law was passed, and even after the Gun Control Act of 1968 was passed, in New Jersey, at least initially, they were getting stuff without papers at what do you call it? The gun shows, because there was large surplus of the M1 carbines were like you could buy them for $5 at that time. Now they're big collector items, That was like the standard gun that everybody got that was cheapy, The M1 carbine. We fired a little 30 caliber carbine round. Now the other side of it is too, and I want to also mention this because Phil Murphy's pushing for this. He got in a big meeting with all the psychs and the psychotropic drug industry, how they agree about mental health. Mental health has been tied with gun control. Mental health is where somebody can just say, well, you got an anxiety disorder, you got depression, you got this or whatever, and you can automatically be prohibited from owning a gun. They do this in New Jersey, California, and Florida. Florida has I think it's called the Baker Act or some garbage, from Maxine Baker, who actually started the act. There's all kinds of stuff whereby, basically, you can even say you got some kind of paranoia because you mistrust the government. and it's all based upon a psychiatrist, which roughly at least 95% of them are very socialistic and anti-gun leaning. But they make a lot of money off of psych drugs, which you notice every single one of these mass shootings pretty much involved people that were on psych drugs. They should be going after these guys. I've put videos out on this before. I don't know if YouTube approved all the monetization on it, but I can tell you one thing. What I'm planning on doing is probably getting the hell out of the state of Florida and going up Tennessee on my property up there in the 10 acres, which might be a very damn cold place by the time the mini ice age hits, and just, you know, let all the crap freaking fall apart across the United States, because I think California's finished, at least coastal California. New Jersey's finished, Connecticut's finished, South Florida's finished, a lot of places are finished, New Orleans is finished, and, you know, I don't want to be anywhere around in major cities when, you know, the plug is pulled on the banking system and the economy. As a matter of fact, I don't plan on exactly getting on something like one of these things. I was looking at an arch structure, probably one of the easiest things to build. It won't look like this, and you know, I'll probably try to attempt to build one first here on my property down here in Florida, and then once I got that figured out and I got the system figured out, I might use it for my, I don't know, something, I don't know what. I'll go build it up in Tennessee. You know, once you build one, you can build several and attach them and make a big giant freaking conglomeration out of it. So, I already see that most people in the United States, they're going to let this happen. They have been letting it happen. Most people don't give a damn, and I don't want to be anywhere near around any area where the plug gets pulled, and they figure out, oh gee, what do we do now? Oh well, too bad, you know. It's sort of like being up in the mountains of Switzerland when the Nazis took over Europe, you know. That's the way I look at it. You know, whether it's in the mountains in the Appalachians, it's away from cities, fine by me. That's what I figure I'm doing. And you know, there's not much you can do about all this garbage, because, you know, I tell people about it. I know how to argue this stuff, and I tell you the truth, I got absolutely no respect for anybody in the government, and period. I don't give a damn what the hell they do. I don't care if they're street sweeper. I don't give a damn what they do. I got absolutely no respect. They draw a dime from the government. I got no respect for people in the military anymore. I didn't even have them back for them back then. I used to get pissed off at those jerks back then when Billy Clinton got in there. There should have been a revolution. When draft dodger Bill Clinton got in there, there should have been a revolution right there. They don't give a damn. You know why? Because what it comes down to is they're in there for their paycheck. We got not an all voluntary military. All volunteer means you spend your own time and money to defend your country. We got what you call the on the grain dole government paycheck military. That's what we got. That's why you really definitely need to keep this citizens armed, because you're not going to trust the military to protect you. You're not going to trust the cops. Matter of fact, they might be the ones that freaking be told to whack you over some, I don't know. You don't know. You have no idea. I don't trust any of the garbage, man. I don't trust anybody in the government, period. I think they're freaking crap. And, you know, that's why I can argue this stuff, because I don't give a damn. I mean, somebody up in New Jersey might be talking about Phil Murphy, and we want to have the Republican. I'd say they're all screwed up. We don't even need, how about no governor? How about that? And, you know, even when I was talking about this Arthur Sill law, this is what I was trying to think of. I forgot about it. During that same year, which was a Democratic governor, I forgot which guy it was, 1966. But during that same year, where they passed the Arthur Sill law with the firearm ID card, with the fingerprint and all the background checks and all the letters of reference and extensive police investigation, all this garbage, they passed the New Jersey sales tax. And then, you know, people got fed up with all the garbage that happened during the Democratic administration. Then they got a Republican in there. The Republican didn't undo anything that the Democrats did. And then people got fed up with the Republican because they're, you know, wishy-washy jerk. And then by 1976, you had another Democratic, governor in there. And then they passed the New Jersey Income Tax Act. which combined with New Jersey income tax, New Jersey sales tax, and the highest real estate taxes in the country, this is worse. This is the worst taxation state going. If you add up that and all the regulatory fees, and this jerk, he's Goldman Sachs jerk. He thinks millionaire tax is going to help things, and keeping up the high taxes on what do you call it, property. I don't know what this guy actually did. I don't know what this guy is. Maybe you know what it is. I guess he's a robber baron. You know what I mean? He's not. He's really he's a wealthy guy and he's a smart guy, but he's a robber baron. Just because he's got a lot of money doesn't mean he's going to do you any favors. But I gave you some background on how you can fight this guy with what went on with the New Jersey firearms ID card right from the beginning. You got to get rid of that. You got to start arguing with your legislators to get rid of the ID card. Period. Get rid of it completely and totally. The entire New Jersey Arthur Sill Gun Control Act of 1966 needs to be abolished. And you know, you need to freaking look up. There's probably plenty of criminality on these guys. You can't trust anybody in New Jersey government. None of them. None of them. District attorney, cops, judges, I don't know, sanitation people, nobody. New Jersey State Inspection of Vehicles, emissions, I can care less. I hate that place. I might go up there maybe someday to be a renegade. Maybe, but I don't want to bother. Because 99.99% of the people I've seen up there do not fight this garbage. And that's what disgusts me about it. That's why I won't live up there anymore. That's why New Jersey is that screwed up. Because it's the people that live there that allowed it to happen. They allowed this stuff to happen back in 1966. This wasn't even a lame baby boomer generation, which I'm in the baby boomer generation, but I can tell you one thing, I don't think like most of them by far. But that was the traditional generation. In 1966, you probably had people in that meeting that might have been born in March 1966. They might have been born in 1900. They would have been 65 years old. Say their birthday was July 1966. The meeting was March 66. They might have been 65 years old. It's very possible. They could have been born in 1897. They might have been 68 years old at that meeting. They're probably people born before World War I. They allowed this to happen. That's why that state is too far gone. It is way too far gone. This guy, he reminds me of this Corazon guy. Remember the guy at Corazon? The guy who stole like $1 billion or something like that and got away with it. That's what Phil Murphy reminds me of. And Sheila Oliver. Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here. So have fun arguing with this guy. And, you know, and if they quote the second, you know what? Say there's no Second Amendment. Say there's no Bill of Rights. Too bad. Tough shit. Tough shit. You know that? You gotta look at these authorities as the tyrants they really are. Cops included. But you can't freaking fight them. You'd be stupid to do that. You're an idiot to do that. But you gotta realize in your head what they really are. I don't give a damn how nice they talk to you. They don't give a damn about your rights. They care about their pay. They enforce whatever laws that they have to. And, you know, it's my job. Well, like I always said, criminals, communists, obeying politicians, that's what cops stand for. And you know what? They ain't even nowhere near the worst. The worst are the politicians and the higher-ups. But still, they're all part of the problem. So just remember what government actually is. It's just force. Lethal force. That's all it is. And governments commit genocides. They have in the past, and they will continue to do so. And the other side of it is, too, we got a little more creative today with mental health and psychotropic drugs. If you question anything, hey, they'll screw your brains up. on these meds, you'll turn your 130, 140 IQ into a 70, and that's when then you'll be done. That's that's the other side of it too. Under the guise of helping you, I'm here from the government to drug you, right? That's exactly what these people are about. So, and if you keep believing in this Jesus, he's going to freaking save the world and blah blah. Fine, I don't believe in him. All right, I don't believe in him. As a matter of fact, I don't even believe there's going to be any savior. We're here. We're the human race. Yeah, there's a creator. Somebody created us. I know that. There's truth, justice. There's honor. There's virtue. I know these things exist. There's righteousness. There's fairness. There's fair play. I know these things. There's some things that are very self-evident. But I could tell you one thing. Religion was invented by people to control them like slaves and keep them in a little box. And that's another problem what's going on. So if you think, don't let this shit worry you too much. But just keep it in your mind. Hey, who's the enemy? Who's the enemy? Right now it's Phil Murphy. Anyway, over now.